Hey everybody, Tony Gonzalez with Garage Composites. We often hear from our dealers that cost of doing business is going up and margins just keep getting smaller, and that's exactly why we decided to partner with MiCamp. MiCamp works with powersports and auto dealerships nationwide to help reduce or even eliminate thousands of dollars in credit card processing fees. They do this through lowered rates or fully compliant dual pricing and surcharge programs. Garage Composites recently switched our own processing over to MiCamp, and it was super simple. Kylie and Lauren over at MiCamp ran a quick analysis of our current processing statements, showed us exactly how they could cut our monthly fees by 25%, and then had our system converted and running smoothly within a week. After working with their team, we wanted to partner so that our listeners can benefit from the same savings. MiCamp has agreed to help offset any upfront conversion costs for GarageCast listeners. If you want to see how they can help your business, you can email them at garagecomposites@micamp.com. garagecomposites@micamp.com. That is MICAMP. garagecomposites@micamp.com to schedule a meeting with their dedicated team. We hope you use them. We're super happy with them. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Tony Gonzalez coming to you with another GarageCast. This week, we're talking to Chad Clark and Bryan Castor. They own 5 rooftops in the Harley-Davidson space, starting with the original. Sheldon's one of the oldest Harley-Davidson dealerships in the country. They have a fantastic story of, I wouldn't say coming from nothing, but damn near close to coming from nothing to owning 5 Harley-Davidson dealerships. Listen to how it can still be done. Really great interview, and hope you enjoy it. This is a show for anybody that has something that they want to say. It's going to be full of people with a lot of energy, CEOs, OEMs, vendors.
Best practice ideas in this industry and of neighboring industries.
We're talking to people that are on the cutting edge of processes, management.
Serial entrepreneurs, authors. We really have a feast of all different types of senior level people.
A cornucopia, as it were.
A plethora, maybe. Grab a pen, grab a cup of coffee, and have a seat. Start writing. This is GarageCast.
GarageCast. Welcome to GarageCast. These two jokers that are up next. This
That's
is a
not
good
even
story.
the word. Jokers.
Jokers. Yeah, I remember these guys from their first ever meeting that they came into in Harley-Davidson. Were we in Puerto Rico, weren't we?
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Puerto Rico. I remember Castor thinking, this is the greatest goddamn thing I've ever been a part of, man. He's having freaking mojitos in the pool. And it was, but I remember that first meeting. Want to welcome Chad Clark and Bryan Castor to the show. Guys, thanks so much for hooking up with us.
Hi, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
You know, I know that the OG spot is Sheldon's, but let's talk about ownerships. We got Sheldon's, we got Spitzy's. Keep going.
Old School, Hartford, and Battleship.
Old School, Hartford, and Battleship. So 5 rooftops now, which is freaking awesome. I love to see that kind of success in the industry. Let's kick this off right off the get-go. Let's start with like let's start this from the beginning. Bryan, let's start with you. How'd you get into the industry? I know you're a Canadian dude. How'd you get down here and get into the industry?
So my dad took a job. My parents were either minister. My dad was a minister or a missionary basically my whole life. So we lived all over Canada. And my dad took a 1.5-year break and took a job for a German company. And their home base was in Enfield, Connecticut. So we moved to Connecticut, which should have been my senior year of high school. Moved down here. Ultimately met my wife in high school. Moved around a little bit after that, went to Minnesota for a year, played some hockey in college, and bounced back and forth between Canada and the United States, fighting forest fires for a little bit. And then I decided that I either needed to marry this girl or break it off. So we decided to get married, and she was going to move to Canada. And at the last minute, she said, home isn't so bad after all. So I'd lived in Connecticut, so we moved there, and that's kind of how I got to the States. We got married young. I actually just on the 3rd celebrated 25-year anniversary. So she's
Congrats.
There's somebody out there crazy enough to stick with me that long, but we we did.
That's right.
We working, had a kid. lost my job kind of unexpectedly, and it just kind of shattered me. I didn't have very many goals in life. I don't know why. I just kind of took it day by day, but not getting fired was one of them. And I lost my job, and it crushed me. We went to the mall. I remember the next day, my wife and I felt like everybody in that mall was looking at me and knew I had lost my job. And she said, why don't we move somewhere? And I said, well, the Carolinas sound cool. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? I've been selling. And I thought, all I think about all day is riding this stupid bike. I had a Harley at the time. And I said, maybe I'll go try to sell Harleys. So I put out some feelers, rented a car, and drove to North Carolina. And I stopped at any dealer that I saw along the highway. And I had a couple interviews set up. And Greensboro, North Carolina is where I ended up. Had an interview, went back to Connecticut, and the lady, her name was Mary Beth. All right, so I got a call about 1:00 in the afternoon, and she said, we decided to go with you. I said, great. She said, can you be here tomorrow at 10? And I thought, well, you know where I live, right? And she said with a tone in her voice, well, if you can't. And I thought, so this is how long ago it was. I had a cordless phone at my house, and I was walking around. My wife was holding my baby, and I was listening to her on the phone while I was grabbing clothes and packing a bag. And my wife looked at me and she says, what are you doing? And I said, I gotta go. And I packed a bag. She drove me to the airport. I rented a car and I drove through the night, and I got there at about 5:00 in the morning, and I started when they opened.
Damn.
That's how it started.
I was certain you were going to say she had a tone, and I told her, I told her she'd kiss my ass.
Yeah. After how defeated I felt, that kind of stuff was not happening back then.
That's hilarious. And so that was your first gig in the Harley-Davidson world.
First gig, I started December 3rd. Not the best time to start selling motorcycles. I went like a month and a half, like 6 weeks, I think. I didn't sell a motorcycle. The lady there, she was not very helpful in helping me sell motorcycles. But I remember sitting on the edge of my bed. I was broke. I was feeling like a failure. And I remember telling my wife, I said, I'm going to give it one more day and I'm coming back. And the next day I sold a motorcycle. The day after that, I sold 2 motorcycles, and the switch flipped, and I just figured it out. And if they had 2 stores at the time, Greensboro and High Point, and if they sold 65 bikes in a month, I sold 35 of them. And it just, that's how it went. And I just I never left. I never left for lunch. I never really did that in my career. I was too afraid to lose a sale, and I just, that's kind of how I got here.
Wow. And then you worked your way up into...
Yes. So she moved. We bought a house. She got pregnant again. She decided home wasn't so bad after all. The guy that had been doing my taxes, he was my friend's dad.
She got herself pregnant again.
Yeah.
That's a classic motorcycle man right there. Got herself pregnant.
Yeah. So I moved her back home, and I was going to ride my Harley back to North Carolina to finish out the season. And she started saying, just don't go back. Don't go back. So I said, I'll give it 3 days. And I went to TSI, where the guy that did my taxes, he was their CPA, and he said, go talk to Harry. So I went and talked to Harry, and he said, I just won a trip from Harley. I'm going to Alaska tomorrow. I'll be back in 2 weeks. You start then. So I stayed around, worked tobacco for a couple of my buddies for a week or two, lived in a little bedroom in my wife's parents' house with a 1 or 2 year old. My wife was pregnant. That was not some of the prouder times of my life. But I started the first day, and the lady who still works for us now, she's our controller. She was sitting down to show me how to log in, and she never got up from the desk. I sold 3 bikes before 3:00. They were looking for forms that they didn't know that they had to sell products that I had been used to selling there. And, the rest is history, I guess.
Damn.
Love
Chad,
that
how
story.
about you?
Wow. Yeah. A little different story, but it did start in the South. I was working for Ace Hardware at the time as a visual merchandiser, and I went around for corporate and set up stores. And one of the stores I had to set up was located in Daytona Beach. And the area rep said, well, make sure you book your hotel early. It's bike week. And I said, well, what is bike week? And he goes, you'll find out when you get here. So I landed in Daytona, and bike week smacked me right in the face. And I had never owned a motorcycle before. I'd never been on a Harley. And after that week, I left there and I said, I want to be part of that. And I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time. And I signed up to take a riding course. And the bike I learned to ride on was a 99 Fat Boy. And so I jumped right in. I said, I want to be part of this. Joined the local hall group, North Texas at the time. Came to figure out that the Fat Boy, even though it was super cool, it was into Arnold Schwarzenegger films, wasn't the bike for me. So I sold it and I get out of the sport. Went back to school for my MBA, finished my MBA, and then I applied for a district manager job at Harley-Davidson, and they called me for an interview. And I got the job, and I'm living in Dallas, Texas, and they said, congratulations, if you want the job, it's in Connecticut. And Connecticut is not like Dallas, Texas.
No, nothing.
Nothing like it. So, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Moved to Connecticut as a district manager, and one of my first stops up there, the store was TSI Harley-Davidson, and I walked in there, introduced myself, and Bryan Castor says, oh, great, you're the new field rep. I said, yeah. He goes, you want to play golf? I said, yes, I do. So we play golf in the owner's golf tournament, and they say some of the best deals are done on the golf course, and this is proof in the pudding that it certainly does.
Nice. That is awesome.
Yeah. Bryan, did you hear when Chad started and he said, well, I totally had a different course. And then he said, when I got my MBA, and you could feel him staring down at you in the window over here, I'm a little different than the sales guy with his 1-year-old in mama's bed.
Yeah, there's definitely a few differences. He's got an MBA, and I'm just now getting to the point where I can read at an 8th grade level. So,
well, you're going to catch Tony. He's not too far ahead of you. So, so interesting, right? So Chad goes to work for Harley Corporate. Bryan, you're working in the dealerships. You're coming up through the ranks. Both of you guys are on two totally polar opposite sides of what this industry is all about. So I'm just kind of like, are there 2 or 3 takeaways that Chad, from an OEM perspective, you're like, oh, I totally see how this is screwing those guys, or why aren't they doing it the way that we're telling them to do it? And Bryan, maybe there's some perspective of the OEM that now as an owner is a little bit different. Anything you guys can share with us coming from those different perspectives?
Yeah, for me, being on both sides of the fence, they do not teach you at Harley-Davidson what a dealer has to go through. They do not teach you Talon or any other DMS. They understand profitability. They don't understand cash flow is a foreign to them. So everything's about profits and unit sales, which is a fraction. The other thing is we don't spend our entire day on HDNet looking for things to do, and that's a very small fraction of what we go up against.
Okay.
And how about you?
I think a lot of the stuff Chad said, these people, good people, smart people, a lot of them haven't been in the trenches, and they have a good idea in a think tank and think that that's going to be, that's it. And it's coming down from the top. So that's the message they have to bring in. And, I think if you have a good relationship with your field rep, that's huge for both. We understand, where those things are coming from. We know that they have certain goals to meet, and that they can also help us out different times when we need it as well. So there's a kind of scratch my back, I'll scratch your type of thing, but it's the relationship that helps you win on both sides, I think. And when you don't have that relationship, I think that's a tough hill to climb when you do not have a relationship with your DM, or your DM doesn't have a personal relationship with you. That's a tough one.
Well, it's interesting. You guys kicked off your relationship playing golf, right? And you hear, having you in my 20 club, you hear some of the guys around the room that they clearly don't have that relationship, right? And so have each of those perspectives shaped your approach as dealership owners? And if so, how would that be?
Well, Brian's leading me down the rabbit hole with relationships with Harley-Davidson, and it's been strained. We've always been very pro motor company. We've always tried to support as many programs as we can, our field reps. But I feel like in the last several years, the business partner has let us down, and I venture to say I'm not the only one to say that. With the new CEO coming in, we're hoping to repair those relationships where we're operating as one again. Because right now we have not been operating as one, and it's been damaging to the dealer profitability. As nobody it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody at this point. Artie, I don't know him. At first I kind of questioned, his background, but you know what? I'll take it. I'll roll the dice. We don't have much to say anyway, but we're going to give the guy a chance, because we need each other. They need us. We need them. And when we're going two different ways, it does not work for anybody, especially the consumer. So
true, Brian. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chad. Finish that.
A relationship, like Brian said, relationship is how we do business in America. It's how we do business with our customers, through relations. We're not selling units. People buy from people. And that's what we got to get back to.
Well, it's like you got hooked on Bike Week. You didn't get hooked on a bike. You got hooked on Bike Week and the culture that surrounded it. But Brian, let me just ask you, with the new CEO coming in, is he with his background at Top Golf, is he a golf guy, or is he an experienced guy, or is he somewhere in the middle? Do we know that yet?
So I actually know somebody that worked for him, and I'll keep their name out of it. But and I haven't had a chance to get their complete take on him, but they did say he is smart. They said he's smart, he's a numbers guy, and that's about all I've gotten from him. I've heard some comments from some dealers who have met him. I guess he's kind of been going on a tour even before getting the job, hitting dealers, and really the common theme that I've heard from a few dealers is that he interacts with the staff. He seems genuinely interested in what they have to say, and kind of trying to really understand the culture and what it is that makes this thing tick. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
So you guys met through the business relationship of the district manager and the front end of the store, Brian. So how long did it take for you guys to decide that you're going to start either looking to buy a place and get together and do this? Brian, I'll start with you.
I'll back it up a hair. I worked at TSI for a long time, like 7.5 years, loved it, thought I'd retire there. Some things started happening, that were just making it not so fun anymore. And it came to the point where I knew I was going to leave. And Chad was a smart guy at that time. He still is, but he was smart. He realized that I was going to leave, but he wanted me to stay in his DAT. And what happened was my phone started ringing, and I didn't have to make any phone calls. And that puts you in a totally different seat when you're looking for a job, right? So people started calling me. I was doing interviews, and ultimately I ended up going to my nearest competitor, which I never in a million years thought I would do, which was Jengwers, which is now Hartford Harley. They got me an interview. They would not leave me alone. They were blowing on my phone. I was brushing my teeth at 6:30 in the morning, and they're texting me. And so ultimately I went there and was able to stay in Chad's DAT. And with that relationship, there's quotas and things that they got to move. They got to push things, right? And with my relationship with him, we were able to really scratch each other's backs. I was able to do a bang up job at that store. A lot of it with help from Chad, and just different plans that worked out good for all of us. But that's kind of there, and then I'll get to the next point and let Chad take it from there. And another brushing my teeth story is about 10:30 at night, and I get a text from my district manager saying, and it just says, "How far would you be willing to drive to work?" And I thought, that's an odd question, since I've been at this store now about 3 years, and things were going great. And I thought, man, that's a weird question for my DM at 10:30 in the morning or 10:30 at night. So I called him, and then I'll let him take it from there.
Yeah. So I was doing some business planning with Orville Sheldon, and several years before this, and I asked a very simple question of, what is your succession plan? And there was a lot of silence after that. And I said, well, Orville had 2 sons has 2 sons, and there was no interest in the business. And Orville's getting older. And I said, well, if you're, I'd be willing to work to own someday, because I don't have any money, but I like the opportunity. So time goes by, 3 years go by, I get a phone call, and it's Orville Sheldon. Says, hey, my general manager is leaving and I'm going to retire. Would you like to come buy me out? And I said, well, I will be up there on Monday morning and we'll talk. So I come up there and we talked, and started inviting. And then on the way home, I realized something very important. I had never sold a motorcycle retail wise. And I said, who can I call who knows how to sell a motorcycle retail? And there was one person on that list, and that's where the text come into Bryan. And so we went up and talked to Orville, and we put together a handshake deal, and that was we did it together. So what works for Bryan and I is his strengths are my weaknesses, and some of my strengths are his weaknesses. So we balance each other out fairly well here, and that's what's that, and having a true, honest partnership has got us to where we're at. We've sat in 20 group meetings. We've seen stressful partnerships between 2 owners, right? And we said, we are not going to be those people, and we are as transparent and open as anybody could possibly be. And that's what's worked for us.
That's awesome.
There's always a joke that the only things we were allowed to have in the vending machine were Swiss rolls or Twix, because I always knew when Chad got one, because the other half was on my desk.
That's awesome. So I mean, it would appear that what drew you to Sheldon's is that Orville, and listen, we all know Orville. I mean, one of the kindest human beings on the face of the earth, salt of the earth human being. He was there with Ed, and I know that Sam moderated that group before I moderated that group, and it was for a straight decade, it was just a straight drubbing when his numbers came up, just beating the living shit out of him and Ed all the time, to the point where, I've already said the name, but I was just like, how long are we doing this? Like, we need to get somebody in there that's going to run the store for your own interests. And it appears that you found the shop and you found the place, and you went in there to preserve the heritage. I know for a fact, right? Because that's one of the oldest dealerships in the country. Speak to me about that, Chad, first, and then we'll go to Bryan.
Well, Bryan was the one who really said, we good or bad, we can't change the name, and he gave us this opportunity, and we're forever grateful to him for that. When we went in there, the reputation was less than stellar, and that's being kind in the community. But we kept the name, and it's still there today. Orville got what he wanted out of the deal, and so did we. He wanted to see he wanted to give two people an opportunity who didn't have the money to write him a check to roll up their sleeves, show some elbow grease, and make it their own. And that's exactly what we did.
Bryan?
Yeah, he summed a lot of that up. Orville's a super smart guy, man. I mean, and he's got a heart of gold, that's for sure. And you got to figure out how to get the answers out of him that you're looking for, right? You just got to figure Orville out. But great guy, gave us an opportunity. I mean, literally it's too late for anybody to do anything about it now, but I mean, literally half of our deal was on a handshake. It wasn't even written down on a napkin. And I can remember one time we had been working there. Man, there's so many stories that come to my mind. I don't want to get off track, but I remember one time when I literally for the first 2 days, he said, "Oh, I'm in St. Croix. Why don't you just go and start?" And I'm like, maybe we just wait like 2 days until you come back and then you can introduce me to everybody. Oh, okay. So we did that. And after they introduced me to everybody, I literally spent like almost 3 days of literally cleaning out an office with a oil drum that just I used to dump garbage into I mean, you couldn't imagine the stuff that I found in there. It was unreal. But they were open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night every day. Wow. And I'm like, this is insane. I'm driving an hour each way to work at this point. And I said, this is nuts. I mean, there's nobody coming in here till 10 o'clock, you know? And I said, we're changing the hours. And sales manager looked at me and he says, what, you think you got Moses' staff? And he shut the door to his office. And I went out and talked to Orville, and I said, hey, Orville, he asked me how things are going, what we need to change. I said, well, we're going to change the hours. And you could see his face, and he just always wanted a reason why, right? And I said, well, you see those two ladies over there, Orville? And he'd go to the gym in the morning and then come in after. So he'd be there about 10:30. And I said, those two ladies are the first people that have walked in this door. And I said, we're paying for heat, lights, all that stuff. And he says, oh, okay. So I went to the front door, changed the hours, walked back to that guy's office, opened the door and said, the hours change tomorrow, and shut it and just kept on going. But it was quite wild. Orville just gave us a tremendous opportunity that I'll forever be grateful for. I mean, it's a fairy tale thing. I mean, for somebody like us, you know, never in my wildest dreams. I mean, a pipe dream would have been to own a dealership someday, but I mean, that's a crazy pipe dream. And now to see where we're at, you know, I'm not sure if it's a nightmare or what it is, but it has been more than anything I could have ever imagined. And I can guarantee you we would not have done that had it been just me, because Chad always had this saying, and it took a little bit, but he would always tell me, he's like, I don't want to be a store owner. I want to be a business owner. And I'll let him kind of add to that, but he's got some tutelage, some things that he'd seen in the hardware industry and as well in the Harley industry that, really helped us get to where we're at.
Yeah. You know, I got a funny story, and it goes back to, Sam, what we were talking about is like, so for decades, it was Orville getting the living crap beat out of him, not only by the moderators, but by the other dealers. And again, Orville's a nice guy, and no matter what you said to him, and it wasn't just drubbing him to drub him. It was like, dude, so much money here. You're not doing this. We got that. And he would just, he'd take his lumps. And I remember it was maybe third or fourth meeting after you guys took it over. And, the progress was just like massive leaps, right? So it came to a meeting. I was asking a question. I'm like, yeah, so talk to me about that, Orville. And he just kind of looked around one of you guys, and he just pointed to Chad and to Bryan. He goes, they're going to be answering the questions from here on out. And so that was the first thing, right? So that was the first thing. And then about 3 meetings after that, about another year later, sitting there in a composite review, and I don't know, we're hammering on somebody else. And Orville's looking at the composite. He goes, so yeah, I'm curious to know, when do you think you're going to get your F&I PUS up? That number's been pretty low for a long time. And the whole room was like, what the hell did you just say, Orville? And I talked to him afterwards. He's like, I kind of like, working with these guys. This is a lot more fun with these guys here. So yeah, it was awesome.
That's awesome.
That was one of the things that that's one of the things that I wanted, maybe subconsciously, but for him to be able to walk into any room with his head held high, like he was the man, you know what I mean? I remember going to a dealer show. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of those, but that's something we used to do in the past.
Wow. Wow.
But a parts manager was there, and he saw Willie G, and he wanted to go over there and, get a picture. And I said, don't go anywhere. I said, hold on. I said, hang out with Orville. And dude, nope. 5 minutes later, Willie G looks over and says, hey, Orville. And he comes over to us. So that was just a cool moment. I remember, because I knew they had a good relationship, and that was just a neat thing.
That is awesome. It's interesting. Tony and I feel the same way about Ed Lemko, and just like the opportunity that he gave me initially, and then for us to be able to put that band back together in 2015, it's like, whatever it takes, man. There's something different about the work ethic when you find yourself in that position. And so it's just cool to hear from you guys as well. But you, like, this was a dream, right? You took over this one store, but here you are with, what is it, 5 stores now? Like, where'd the impetus for that come from? That's a significant challenge, just going to 2, much less 5. I'm wondering how you guys identified the opportunities to acquire the new stores. And then did you learn from each acquisition? Or are you still learning, or you regret some of these? Or like, whoever wants to take that answer.
Yes, and yes. Now, next question.
Yeah, that's why you're the brains of the operation here.
Well, we haven't made all the right moves, that's for sure. But it was a different time back then. You could buy a store and you knew what you were going to make to the bottom line, and it was kind of a no-brainer, right? Times have changed now, but our initial goal was to get 2, kind of one for him, one for me, to kind of, balance out the partnership, and then we started getting calls after we got Spitsies of people who actually, all the stores we owned, except for one, was in the district that I represented. So I kind of knew the owners. I kind of knew their business. We kind of knew their strengths and weaknesses, the market pretty well. And so we kind of acted on that. So we had some information. We weren't going into it totally blind. But like I said, the business was a lot different then than it is today. I remember one of your podcasts, you had Rick Worth on, and I think somebody asked the question, and I'm going to stumble through this a little bit, is it possible for somebody to get in the business today who didn't have any money, or I don't know how it was put.
Yeah.
And,
like you did.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was listening to that, thinking to myself, well, that's how Bryan and I did it. And you really need somebody like Orville to open up that opportunity and be willing to finance it. And you've got to have some, net worth yourself. So, I mean, that was an interesting question when you asked Rick that, and I kind of hit home with me, because that's, I don't know if it's possible today or not, honestly, either. But that's how we did it, but back then the business was a lot more predictable. And I've made the comment many times to Harley reps and whoever will listen, the business model we have today isn't what any dealer signed up for back in the day when they became dealers. This is not what any of us signed up for. This is ambiguity to the 10th power.
Chad, elaborate on some of that. We have a lot of Marine listeners as well. What do you mean by that?
Well, we had some really nice profits in 21 and 22. And then the CEO made the comment, it was your turn, now it's going to be my turn. And not sure what that meant at the time, but what it really meant was we're going to strip away your VIP and replace it with HD1 rewards. We're going to go launch this e-commerce initiative because we're going to take the brand to everybody. And now our margins are down to nothing on the e-commerce, which they pretty much sell all the SKUs or damn close to them on their website. So they're our biggest competitor, but yet they give us the targets to hit retail wise in order to get the HD1 rewards. So I'm not sure how that works out. I put the pencil to the paper with today's sales levels, which have declined, and I'll credit that to the economy, but the margin decline I credit to the motor company with the overproduction, the selling of products on e-commerce, which has destroyed our walk-in customers, which we convert to bike sales, and the number is well into the seven figures for all five of our stores. And it's and yeah, I would if I had that money in my bank today, would it make a difference? Yeah, it would, but it's not in my bank account. It's in the motor company's bank account. And so it's been disappointing. I've used the analogy. It's like when Coca-Cola came on and said, hey, we're going to launch the new Coke flavor, right? And we're going to target a whole new audience. We all know what happened right then. It was a disaster. And they end up going back to the old recipe, classic Coke. And I tell everybody, the recipe for Harley-Davidson is still there. It's just going to take someone who's willing to go back to it and stick to it. After 120 plus years, Harley-Davidson is what Harley-Davidson is. Okay? You're not going to, we're going to attract new customers, but when less than 3% of the entire population are into power sports, I don't understand how that's going to be taken to the masses. So you got to stick with what it is. You dance with who brung you. And that's what, our customers don't want the new Coke formula. They want classic Coke.
Yeah.
And they want to ride that motorcycle in a Cracker Barrel. Damn it, America.
So, speaking to that metaphor, Bryan, how badly do you miss Sportsters? And do you think that was just a grave misstep?
I'm a Sportster guy, actually. Right. I have probably one of the only FXRs that have been modified to hold a Sportster motor. That's kind of how big of a fan I am of the bike. It's definitely different. The new product that they have, I mean, it's a superior bike as far as performance, weight. I mean, it's awesome, but it is not the true heartbeat of Harley-Davidson. You know what I mean? It's more plasticky and different. It's more European bike. And I think, I don't know what I can say on here or not, but I think it's
whatever you want.
No, I can't
say whatever you want right here on GarageCast.
I'm sworn to secrecy on a few things, but Europe, I think they've been getting just manhandled because of that. And I think what's crazy to me is that corporate maybe was caught off guard that the new ones aren't selling so well overseas. And to me, it wouldn't be a surprise, because if they wanted a bike like that, they'd go buy one that they could already get over there. They'd buy a Triumph, they'd buy a Ducati, they'd buy something like that already. They wanted the air-cooled, Harley-Davidson that they could see and, as close to Easy Rider and all those types of things as you could get. And, it's definitely been odd. I mean, the used ones are gone through the roof. You know what I mean? Used Sportsters are, you can sell them as many as you can get. So, but I don't know.
So, super quick follow-up on what you guys were both just saying right now is, as you guys continue and expand and grow, where do you see the future of Harley-Davidson dealership going? Where do you see an expansion, and what major changes do you anticipate in the next 5 to 10 years? Let's say 3 to 5 years even. Chad, I'll give that to you.
Well, I can tell you the current path is not sustainable. The current dealer profitability is not going to lure a new investor uh, into this business. So it's going to be up to Harley-Davidson if they want to continue the same path, or if they want, is not, more and more dealers leave, you're going to have less and less bikes to ship to. Even if it's a small dealer, it's going to make it's going to be a big problem. I don't know the future, but like I said, this is not the business model anybody signed up for when we became dealers. So it's going to be up to them to see what, I know Artie's been listening to a lot of dealers. He's been getting a lot of feedback. We were pretty vocal when it came down to the proxy fight, along with all the other dealers. And, somebody tell me that there's 3 prongs to this. There's motor company profitability, shareholder profitability, and dealership profitability. And those 3 have to work in conjunction with each other. And we're a big part of that. We're supposed to be the retail outlet for Harley-Davidson. And right now, that's to see our invoices keep going down and the e-commerce continue to just flood the market, is not what we're, it's a brand. It's like the brand doesn't do well when it's vomited all over everybody. People want that mystique. People want that desire to earn it, especially instead of giving it to somebody. When somebody earns something, it means so much more, right? When you ride your bike to Sturgis, man, that's a badge of honor, right? And Harley-Davidson brand, it ain't for everybody. And when it did the best when the supply was lower than the demand. And, when it's just so off kilter right now, it's going to take a while to get back to where it needs to be.
I have a follow-up for you, and then Bryan, I'm going to come back to you. Chad, my follow-up is, you mentioned those 3 arms, and I'll never forget day 1, Ed's like, nothing happens until somebody sells something, right? So you sit here and you're like, dealership profitability has to be number 1 if those other 2 arms are going to be healthy and profitable, right? It's so simple, certainly from this perspective. And so my question to you, Chad, is if Artie is given a green light to run it how he thinks it should be run, do you think he's getting enough influence to really take it back to what it was, to what we know, the formula? We know the formula. We're going to go back to old Coke. It's going to work fine. Or is he just not going to have the freedom to pull that off?
That's the $1 million question. I know he's getting plenty of dealer feedback from what I've heard. Now, I just don't know the direction that the board is giving him as a mandate, and they're the ones who sign his paycheck. So,
yeah,
I would like to see some more motorcycle power sports experience on the board of directors. I'm not going to lie to you, because when this proxy battle came up, I, along with everybody else, started digging into the bios of all the board members, and to see the lack of any kind of motorcycle power sports experience was disturbing, to say the least. So I don't know if he's going to have the horsepower or the freedom to do that. Hopefully we'll find out more in October. I'm sure in October they'll tell us what we want to hear right at the dealer forum, but the proof is going to be in the pudding after that.
Well, Bryan, until that time, all we can do is sell what we have. So in that line of thinking, tell us about tent sales. You guys are famous for tent sales.
We've done a few. It definitely, maybe not quite to the success rate that we've had in the past. Back in the day, we did a tent sale kind of on a must. We were behind the year before. We were on the hook to pay Orville and all these bills, and Chad said, "Hey man, we're behind where we were last year. We got to do something crazy." So we said, "Let's try a tent event." We had heard from Gus these events that he had done in Michigan at the time. And we talked to him a little bit about it. And we said, all right, let's just do it. So we spent $40,000 in advertising in one weekend. And I mean, at that time, it might as well have been $1 million because we had nothing. And so we got this huge tent and packed it with motorcycles. We got some local banks, and I was praying that we could sell 30 bikes in the 4-day stretch. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Thursday. I don't remember what we did, but the first day we sold 29, and I was like, holy smokes. And we just got better and better at it. I think the best one we ever did was 133 bikes in like 4 days. And when I say signed, sealed, delivered, like those people owned them by close of business Sunday. Like it was the most insane thing. I mean, there were so many things we got better at. Like we got a ticket counter like you get at the deli. And I'm not kidding you. That was one of the best things that we ever did because it took people's anxiety. I mean, we were running 4 or 5 F&I offices at one point, and people really didn't know where they stood in line. But when they had that ticket, they knew exactly where they were. You know what I mean? And that was a game changer there. But
and you had, I'm sorry to interrupt, you had Harley Finance there to help you with these, right? When you're running 4 F&I offices at one time, it wasn't just your staff.
Correct. Yeah. So, the staff people that were running that were all our staff. They were our staff plus people that I knew that had maybe worked in the business before. And I said, hey, do you want to take this weekend off and print money? And they're like, let's do it. Right. I mean, so literally we were getting people with experience, setting them up, and just, I mean, it was 100 miles an hour. I remember the first Sunday we were all sitting before we opened at this picnic table, and everybody had their Dunkin' Donuts. And I mean, it looked like everybody had just been through a UFC fight, you know, and we're like, there's no possible way it could be like this again today. And somebody looked around the corner and said, there's 3 people under the tent right now. Everybody looked at each other. We unlocked the doors and just went at it. I mean, it was insane, but those were some crazy times. Yeah, those are nuts.
And quick follow-up is the final the rule book for your tents. You have a very unique name for the rule book that everybody follows.
So when we started growing, right, and we couldn't be everywhere at once, and we were running them all of ourselves, and then everybody would have a new idea or a better idea, or they would cut corners. And then so we made a thing called the Tent Commandments, and we put them out there, and those were the Tent Commandments. These are the must-dos. If your event falls on its face and you didn't click all 10 of these, it's on you, right? If you did every single thing in the 10 commandments and it fell on its face, it's on us. But if you didn't, it's on you.
Speaking of which, now, I mean, so as you guys have evolved and now you have 5 stores, and what do your events look like at the dealerships now, and how do you measure them to make sure you're getting a good return either on community investment or ROI? Chad?
Well, as we get older, like everybody, we become a little bit more conservative. We understand the value of spending $40,000 a week now in advertising. See, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, we were out of our minds. So we've become more budget conscious, honestly, as we get older. The fact is, you got to do something. You got to give people a reason to come in, right? And so, you know, COVID changed everything, and it changed things with us too. And we're definitely more cautious, I should say. But we're starting to get back our mojo again. You know, like I told Bryan, I said, we were the best when we just put the pedal down, and we didn't care about anything except going full force ahead. And we lost a little bit of that. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's sometimes hard to get back, you know, especially in these challenging times now. But I feel like that we're starting to get back our mojo, if you will, and put the pedal down in a lot of different ways. And These last 3 years have been definitely challenging for everybody, and we're no exception to that.
Yeah, you guys were when you guys first started in those first 3 to 5 years, you guys were gunslingers, and I say this in a positive way, reckless abandon. Like you were just on fire. And not to suggest you're not now. I mean, you guys are probably a lot more calculated, more business people, right? I get it, but there's something to be said for being super hungry when you know you have a big ass debt to pay to somebody, right? And you guys were throwing shit out there, and I just remember the sense of I don't give a shit, we're gonna win. That's all it was, and it was cool to see for sure.
That's definitely what it was. There was no failure was not an option, right? You know, I remember when we took this gig, I mean, we both had company cars, company phones, and he bought a used Honda Accord from his friend in Texas, and we carpooled in that thing. Dude, we drove that thing to Roanoke for your 20 group meeting. Dude, like got pulled over on the way home. Like
Roanoke was the meeting where I said thought I was going to have to take the big guy out at the knees because I thought he was going to come over the table and actually attack two members in the 20 clubs. It was that close. Yeah. It was awesome. And it started with, hey, listen, this is business. This isn't pleasure. And it just went from there. That was fun.
It was an intense time for sure.
Tony, we talk about how our 20 clubs have gotten very PG through the years. Those are some of the times like, this may go bad in a hurry. Right?
This may go bad. How am I going to actually tackle this guy?
That's when you put the vote that's when you put the vote out in an email and had everybody they were voting out on the email.
Yeah, right. It was awesome. It was awesome. Whoopsie dooders.
Yeah, that's when we adopted that policy that guests are not included on the email exchange until they become a member. That's when that came into play. Hey, Chad, awesome. Just on that point about, and this question's for both of you guys, so feel free to jump in, whoever wants it. But like when you're talking about these events and you're more conservative now, as we all are or whatever, but you weren't. When you guys started, to Tony's point, just gunslinging, you guys were on the gas. So I want to talk about your staff. How do you keep the staff on that level of amped up across 5 different rooftops with 2 of you guys? How do you do that?
Leadership. Everything comes down to leadership today. And if you don't have strong leadership, you do not have a fighting chance. And with leadership comes a low tolerance level. And it's easier said than done, you know, because we're a family business. But at the bottom line is your people have to perform. They have to produce. Especially in today's age, you know, we're in definitely a downturn, and you just cannot tolerate poor performance or it'll sink you. You know, there's a lot we didn't know back then about the business and that we know now. That if we knew back then, we probably wouldn't have taken the chances we did or did the crazy things we did. So sometimes knowing less is better because you just, you know, right. You just don't know, right? You can just say, screw it. We're just going to do it, you know?
Ed used to say high tide floats all ships, right? You don't see the coral reef underneath there, but go ahead, Bryan.
The staff is a big thing, right? You can't do this without good staff. 1 store, 2 stores, 5 stores, whatever. Kind of going back to one of the questions you asked that Chad took when we were growing. For me, and Chad says it was like the idea of us getting the store, you know, where he's coming from is back then somebody had to be 51% owner, right? And Chad was tiptoeing around the topic. I didn't really know much about it, but he's like, hey, you know, Harley, somebody's got to be 51%. And I was thinking maybe I'd be 51% of this one and the next one you'll be 51% of, you know? And I just laughed because like if he hadn't called me, I wouldn't have had the opportunity. So there was no skin off my back. And another dealership was like, oh yeah, sure, we'll get one. Well, sure enough, we did. But for me, growing really, because I grew up, I mean, I came up through the trenches and so many times you work at a dealership, you love it. you want to retire there. That's part of your family, but you have aspirations. And I use this analogy all the time. If you're a technician and you want to be a service manager, well, if you've got a good service manager, you've either got to put that on the back burner or you're going to have to leave the company to follow your dreams, right? So when you grow, you're able to open more doors for your employees that have been banging it out for you day in and day out. And when they see the opportunity to grow within your company, that's a game changer. I mean, we've got a mechanic at our place at Sheldon's. I mean, his real name's Chris, but nobody would know that. His name's Hammer. And when we came there, the service manager at the time would describe him as a C- technician. You know what I mean? Greasy, tire changing, banging nails on the weekend. And this dude bleeds orange and black. He bleeds Sheldon's. I mean, I promise you, if I said, hey, can you come over here at 3 a.m. and help me get this cat out of a tree, this dude would be doing it. And you know, got a nice house, new cars, you know, I mean, his life is so different now than it was when we met him. And those are the things that's why, for me, that's why we kept growing. I didn't need it. I don't have some ego to feed. This is far bigger than anything I had ever thought of. But when you stop growing, you stop kind of creating those opportunities for your employees. Now, on the flip side of that is some of the things that have got Chad and I in trouble over the years is we tend to want it for our employees sometimes more than they want it for themselves. And that's not all of them, because we've got some great ones. But you want it. I mean, I feel personally responsible. I tell this to my staff all the time. I said, I genuinely care or love every single person that works for me. I may not like them. I might not want to hang out with them, but I feel a responsibility to them and for them. And I want their life to get better because they work in our organization. And when you grow, that's kind of one of the reasons why we grew, or for me, that was one of the big things, why we got 5 stores now and we didn't stop at 2 or 1, you know.
Awesome.
But some of the other cool things are, like, you know, Chad says we've kind of gotten smarter. We slowed down a little bit here and there. I've got 3 boys now that are working in the business. And that is not by force, just so everybody knows. You know, they all went and did something else and figured out if they wanted to do this. And, you know, we've seen so many, we literally own 5 stores in all different reasons, but in some way, shape, or form because of kids, right? It's all a different reason, but it's because of somebody's kids. And that wasn't going to be, you know, my kids they don't have a PhD, you know, Papa had a dealership, you know what I mean? That's not the mentality, but I dropped them off for work the first time. They always there was a rule in my house. You didn't have to work for me, but by the time you're 16 and summer comes, if you don't have a job, you're getting in the car and you're going with me. Right. So, the first one tried to call my bluff, and the next one saw how that worked. So they got jobs elsewhere before that came. But, they, you know, you drop them off day one, and I'm like, you know, every single person in here is going to know who you are, but they better never hear it come out of your mouth. And we would walk up to whoever their manager was, and I'd say, hey, Lou, this is Jack. Jack, this is Lou. Let's exchange phone numbers. If you're going to be late, let Lou know. I know I'm your only ride here, so if you're late, it's because of me, but you still call him and let him know. You know what I mean? So that kind of mentality. And my boys have, the youth, and it's not just them. There's a lot of Old School is one of the stores that's really getting turned around, and they've got a good team, and they've got young dudes that live the life. They ride all the time. They have got this big camaraderie deal, and we're kind of getting that back going in quite a few of the stores. But that we were just talking about this the other day. It's, you know, I'm 46, getting ready to be 47, and, you know, I'd be lying if I said I was moving as fast as I used to. You know what I mean? It's just,
I know what you mean.
I got 1,000 things going on. You know what I mean? I got all these kids and people living everywhere and trying to keep everything afloat. But it's good to see that energy, you know, not only just from my kids, but from the younger staff that are, in the organization, plus some of the older ones. I mean, literally, there's people that work for us still that I worked with day one at TSI like 20 something years ago, and they followed me to different stores. And, that's a cool thing too, where you're just working with you build a team, right? You figure out what their strengths are, who you can trust, who has your back, the people that'll be there through the hard times. And, that's been pretty awesome.
That's
Love
great,
it.
dude. Great answer, guys.
Chad, that's going to be awesome, leveraging your future mailbox money on those Castor boys.
Well, I've known these kids more than half their lives, so
Yeah.
I'm definitely the Uncle Chad, and we do not show favoritism. That's for sure.
That's good.
They got to earn it.
And here is my P.O. box number for you kids when you're ready to write that down. So yeah. Hey guys, this has been fantastic. Chad and Bryan, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story and also being just super forthright about your thoughts on all things that are going on right now. We don't need to wish you guys success because you guys are going to steal success no matter what. So keep kicking ass and keep being dealerships that people can look up to. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, for
thanks,
Bryan
fellas.
Castor. Yeah, for Bryan Castor and Chad Clark, Sam Dantzler, I'm Tony Gonzalez. This has been GarageCast. Have a fantastic Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.